Board members, we have determined there's a quorum. I'd like to call this meeting of the Pender County Board of Education to order on October the 11th, 2022 at 18:02. If you would please rise, Mr. Smith is going to lead us in prayer, followed by Mr. Hall leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious God, thank you for those that were able to be part of this group, making decisions that will better not only the children today, but hopefully the children of the next generation. Guide us, lead us, and protect us in all we say and do. Amen.
Join me in the pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Board members, you have had a chance to review the agenda. I do know that there is one addition to the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
Ms. Burns has made a motion to amend the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to add item 6.1A, Topsail Middle School Air Quality Report.
Ms. Burns has made the motion to add 6.1A, Topsail Middle School Air Quality Report. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous. So now do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hall has made the motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, board members. So we are at public comment, and there was no signing public comment. We do have 3 recorded messages we'll listen to now.
We'll start with Megan Stewart.
Hi, my name is Megan Stewart. I am a parent of a 3rd grader at Topsail Annandale Elementary School. I'm calling in regards to the speech services that are not happening at Topsail Annandale Elementary School. We currently have no speech services happening for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders at Topsail Annandale. My son goes for speech twice a week, and we are on week 7, so that means that he has missed 14 speech services. His IEP is not getting followed. I'm really disappointed that it's come to this and that students are not receiving the services that they need. We had a contracted person last year who came out to our school and was not brought back this year because we were told that we were hiring a full-time person. The full-time person has still not been hired. We are getting to the point where we are going to get ourselves in legal trouble if we do not start following students' IEPs. We need to do something about the lack of speech pathologists and letting parents know at Topsail Annandale that their students are not receiving the services that they are required to get. Thank you.
Second is from Molly Miller.
Hi, my name is Molly Miller, and my children, Nuala, Declan, Luca, and Lena Lebanon, all attend Topsail schools. We switched from Surf City this year, and since the beginning of school, all of my kids have come home saying that they don't feel well, with nobody having any other symptoms. My daughter Nuala has been sent home from school 4 times with a headache, no other symptoms, and I do believe that these are from the mold in the school. I didn't know that this was an issue before we switched, and I think that it's very important that something is done about it sooner rather than later. Thank you.
And this is from Courtney Fowler.
Courtney Fowler. I'm calling in tonight to plead with the Pender County Board of Education to immediately remediate the mold issues at Topsail Middle School. Carbon dioxide is produced by mold, hence the unsafe levels of carbon dioxide in our school buildings. The American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers recommend levels below 1,000 parts per million. If exceeded, it is advised to leave the room immediately. In the study released yesterday, CO2 levels exceeded these limits in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classrooms, with levels over 1,200 and 1,400 parts per million in some classrooms. By continuing to do nothing, you are slowly poisoning our students, teachers, and staff with CO2 and mold. Many teachers and staff have expressed great concern but are scared to speak out publicly. As a parent, I should not have to send my child into a toxic environment where they experience headaches, sleepiness, poor concentration, increased heart rates, and nausea. Please remediate immediately.
Those are the three. Thank you, sir. Plan those. Moving on to the information agenda. 6.1 Cheatham HVAC update. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Our first information item is Mr. Ken Lynch for Cheatham and Associates regarding the HVAC equipment assessment that has been conducted over the last several months.
Good evening, I'm Ken Lynch with Cheatham and Associates. Appreciate your time. I wanted to update the board that we have completed our assessments for all 18 sites requested, and we have provided them to Michael Taylor and his staff. Included in that is a spreadsheet that has tabs for each site.
Mr. Cheatham, tell me your name again.
Kenneth Lynch.
Kenneth, when you're explaining this to us, keep in mind we have the public watching. So if you can, do it in a way that people that don't have these spreadsheets and all this kind of thing, explain it in a way that the general public can understand, if you don't mind. Is that possible?
Well, at this point, I'm not going to talk through the spreadsheets or any of the recommendations that we made.
Okay.
So at this point, my task is just to update you all that we provided the information, and our next steps as coordinated with Michael Taylor is
And to be clear, so everybody knows, this is dealing with the mold and the HVAC replacements. This
This is dealing with the whole Esser's.
But it's all related, is what everybody.
It could be, yes. Parts of it could be related to our
That's the part
HVAC.
that the public needs to understand, and we need to get to the bottom of that tonight, in some way, shape, or form. And
my task was to assess the condition of the HVAC systems.
Right.
And make recommendations based on those that we felt like needed to be replaced, were they at the end of their life, things like that.
Correct, I agree. That was his purpose, and we were waiting on this report so we can prioritize throughout the district which needs to be done first. That's why there hasn't been anything really done. We've been waiting on this report. And you admitted last month this has taken a lot longer than what we anticipated. I think this is actually a year since we signed the agreement, October last year. So it's taken a year to get to this point, which is unfortunate. But yes, they did do the evaluations, made recommendations. We haven't seen the final report yet. I'm sure Mr. Taylor will send it to us once he's got it ready to go out. But we have seen up to this point is their recommendations and what their findings are. So.
Correct, and that's where we are. So our next step is to let Michael and his staff have an opportunity to review what we've done. We're going to meet with them, talk through our recommendations, and then based on that, update and sign our final assessments for the record.
So I have one quick question. So the SEER rating, changes January 1 this year.
Correct.
So these recommendations, the price tag on these recommendations, is that taking into account the new SEER rating that's coming out, or is that with the current equipment that's available on the market?
The cost that we've put in our reports are based on the cost today.
So we're looking probably at a significant increase come January 1st.
I don't know that. The manufacturers that I speak to don't know those answers yet, if there's much cost impact. What's more than likely to be impacted is the availability of equipment.
Right. That's everywhere with everything nowadays.
But in our assessments, we indicated what the current lead times are for equipment if it's not available at the time of order.
So hopefully if we could get some of this, how close are you to meeting with Mr. Taylor and going through this and getting back to us, so, or Mr. Taylor get back to us so we can prioritize. Maybe we can hit some of the end of the, you know, you want the most efficient, you know, equipment, and that's what's gonna come out January 1st, is you're gonna be required to, but if we can get some of the equipment that's gonna be obsolete in this zone, because a lot of that stuff is on sale right now. There's, you know, a Total Line over there on Marlboro Street, they're selling Bryant units for a third, because they're no longer after January 1st, you can't buy them here.
It has to be sold and installed.
Right, so
prior to January 1st.
that's what I'm saying. How soon do you think all this is gonna take place with Mr. Taylor, so we can prioritize and maybe get some of these units prior to the end of the year? Is that?
We have not arranged a meeting date yet, but we will do so ASAP.
Okay.
Well, I'm still lost on it, and I'm sure the public is too, but whatever. So, how does this relate to our mold problem? That's what matters today. Can anybody answer that? Anybody in the room, can anybody answer this?
I can answer somewhat. Some of his recommendations, if you looked at the Topsail Middle School report,
Yeah.
it identifies some of the same things that you're going to hear from the EI company with our preventive maintenance program, our worn out equipment, our end of life, several ends of life equipment. We have equipment that's very old. So it's performed way past its lifespan, times two, some of it. That contributes possibly to some of the issues we have now. So, yeah, his report showed that, and it showed it in the beginning, and I'll admit it's just been there. But as I said, that's one school, this is one school. The plan in the original plan was to have the report analyze every school in our district,
Yep.
our facilities over at, here and over at, whatever that street is, I can't remember now.
Well, can somebody, to make sure that everyone understands about these availability issues, somebody, so if I want to buy a new system like everybody thinks is going to solve all these problems, is it true that there's like an 18-month wait time or a year wait time, things of that?
I will tell you that our representative for the carrier 3 weeks ago said they were ceasing all construction on any new equipment until after January 1st. Train is anywhere from 12 to 17, 18 weeks out for anything that we order, unless they accidentally have somebody who says, oh, we don't want it. Or perhaps if the units are capable of providing services to our needs. I don't know what size Bryant machines that you're talking about, Mr. George, but
They
a
wouldn't be
lot of our
commercial.
machines are much bigger than 3 ton. They're 15, they're 20 ton machines, and those things are not generally built unless there's someone who's there and placing an order. Obviously, school systems have a unique opportunity to put a PO, so these manufacturers know they're gonna get their money. But these machines, because of their cost, they are not built immediately, or they're not built and stored. They're built upon request. In 21 days, the 15-ton train unit went up $7,000.
Yeah.
So those are some complexities that we do have to deal with, but again, we need to come together with Mr. Lynch and the EI group, as well as Synergistics is here tonight. I think collectively, our team meeting with them can collaborate and develop a plan necessary to address the issues at hand at Topsail Middle, but also throughout the district. This is not, I know the priority is one school because that's where many of our concerns are being shared right now, but the reality is we have some ailing machines in particular scattered throughout the district, as you pointed out. The end of life and sometimes double end of life equipment is being used in our district.
I ask because the public needs to understand
Yes, sir.
that some of this stuff, it doesn't matter how much of this ESSER's money you have,
Yes, sir.
which we have ready to go, but I mean, if it's not available, you can't buy it. And so, for example, I've had people ask me, how come you're spending money by having scrubbers put in or whatever? Well, when the equipment's not available, you know, what else you gonna do? I just don't think that this stuff, there's so many people and so much stuff involved.
Yes, sir.
It just turns into a jumble of everything. And honestly, the public just wants a simple answer.
Right.
And they're gonna get it tonight, one way or the other, so.
Well, in response to the air scrubber comment, I think that's the most immediate way we can address the concerns inside the building.
Yeah.
Because portions of that building are going to have to be vacated by students in order to do the remediation, as it was mentioned in the EI group report. So our air scrubbers were the first and immediate thing we could
Yeah,
do
quickest
to
thing to do.
address the spore counts and things of that nature. The
Okay.
second step is obviously increasing outside air intake to reduce the CO2 levels, even though they're not out of the range except the one classroom that registered 1,464 seats.
Okay.
Parts per minute.
Good, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the Bryant units are residential. That's not commercial. I was just saying they have, because of the SEER rating changing,
Yes, sir.
that stuff is winding down.
And see, that
And
could
we
be,
just had
that
a
could be
big
contributing to the
hurricane.
problem.
We just had a big hurricane in Florida that's gonna, there's a lot of stuff gonna go there. So it's gonna be very tight. It's already on the already tight supply chain.
I just wanted people to understand that it's just not a matter of, you run down the street to the heat and air supply place and, tomorrow you have this brand new unit that you can put in to take, for what they've recommended. I mean, you can't help the shortage, he can't help it.
Yes, sir.
You tell us what we need, and then it causes people like me to have to scream at people like him and you. So that's, so no harm meant in it. I just
No, sir. We all
gotta be clear that the public knows, because they deserve answers, and,
Yes, sir.
it's, they haven't heard everything that we hear, is what you know what I mean with it. But-
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And maybe to your point, in our assessments in the past, we would mostly focus on what needs, recommendations to be made and cost. Over the last 2 years now, we have to start addressing lead
Changes.
times on items. Because in the
Change in
past,
weeks.
you could go 10 weeks to get a package unit, and now it's 20 to 30. Or a chiller is in years.
Yes, sir.
But I'm not aware of anything longer than a year right now.
Well, that's better. I'd heard 18 one time, but that's, a year is certainly better than a year and a half on it, so.
It depends upon the piece
What
of
it is,
equipment.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
And they're getting ready to change refrigerant, so.
Even better.
we have that to look forward to.
Yeah.
So,
So, sorry to get off track.
But that was essentially my update. I'm here for questions. I'm going to wait a little while to see if I can help in any other way as this goes forward this evening.
The report that you submitted so far is very thorough, and we appreciate that. I think the main heartburn has been the length it's taken to get it, and some of that is our fault. We should have had, and we'll learn from that our contract should have a end date, where we can maybe encourage a more speedy response.
Right.
But the reports are thorough. I think it's going to help us, guide us, hopefully, to some relief. The money that we have is not abundant, and some of the price tags are very expensive, so everything on the list is not going to be able to be done.
But to that
That's why it's
point-
important that we prioritize and we take what, our least favorable situations, whether it be Topsail Middle School, whether it be another school, or this building. And that's the way, we need to prioritize. There's other air quality reports that are coming out for every school in the county. So we'll take all those and with your information and Mr. Taylor's staff, they'll come up with a plan and bring it to us, and we'll hopefully move on it soon.
And I did just want to add, we got the report today, obviously with this week and principals meeting on Thursday. My intention was to communicate or collaborate and have a meeting early next week with Mr. Lynch and the team, and then we can go from there regarding getting you the information as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've helped ourselves by keeping ourselves in business, but we haven't helped ourselves by doing things necessarily the right, most efficient way. Because I noticed a lot of the units are mismatched. You got RUDs running trained air handlers. I mean, there's things to take account, and we kind of just patched and went as we went, and now now we're paying for it. And, that's unfortunate that we did that to ourselves. But like I said, we appreciate what you've done. We'll take your report and the other ones and hopefully make a educated decision. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions, board members, for Mr. Lynch?
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move into 6.1A, which is the Topsail Middle School Air Quality Report. And we have on the phone representatives from the EI Group. Is that correct name, EI Group?
Yes, sir.
That is correct.
Mr. Rockefeller, and I'm sorry, who did you say you have with you?
Mr. Majkowski.
He's one of the ones that actually performed some of our testing, I think. I've seen his name in the report.
Absolutely. He was leading the project down there with my oversight. And actually, I had knocked a couple schools out myself, so.
Well, thank you. Thank y'all for what you've done. And we don't necessarily look forward to the rest of the reports, but we look forward to the rest of the reports, if that makes sense.
It does. I think these will be beneficial because it's, I think you knew there was issues. Now we're just presenting those, and I think, we'd like to lay out a plan to move forward. I look at this as I have an 11-year-old son, and I think, would I want him in these environments? So that's the lens I look through when making these decisions, as well as the science behind it.
I understand that. So, board members, is there any questions that y'all have before I start asking questions? I want to give y'all an opportunity before I get long-winded.
I know you already have questions. Go ahead.
So I just, clarification on some things that's in the report. So the relative humidity not to exceed 60% is a recommendation. And we've pretty much stayed below that barely in most of our facilities. We have one that was at 64%. That extra 4%, how critical is that? That extra 4%. I mean, is it just as bad to have 4% as it's 10%? Or
let's look at it as you have a systemic issue with HVACs. And a lot of our findings that we're seeing is they're dirty, not well maintained. You can tell that they're hitting dew points. You have rust on your registers. Even our mold samples, a couple of them were slightly elevated, but we have a lot of background noise or dust in there. So just a dustier environment than you're going to want. So our thought is the ducts really need to get cleaned throughout the school. And I would think that'd be the number one thing you'd want to do, because a lot of these air quality issues, aside from active water intrusions in the 700 building, is HVAC related. And hearing the discussion about the lead times for new HVAC equipment, I'd probably service these best you can just to limp along until you can replace them. And what we're seeing with 64% relative humidity, it's a little stagnant air. There's probably not enough fresh air coming in. Really, all the systems need to be looked at. Fresh air needs to be adjusted or controlled better to allow more fresh air intakes. I know you guys are on a remote system, and the feedback we're getting from a lot of the teachers while we're there is erratic temperatures from one classroom to the next, and that's really conducive to not a good indoor air quality environment. So I think that's first and foremost is your HVACs. Get them serviced best you can. Then there's a couple dockets, bullet points here where you need to do some remediation, where you have some active leak in that 700 building. And the huts. Don't forget the huts.
right, the huts are a nightmare.
They are.
So on page 3 of your report, you explained that for CO2, the level below 5,000 parts per million are not harmful. So the call and
That's right.
And the recommendation is to take the outside CO2 level plus 700. So ours that day
That's right.
outside was 708. The inside would have been 1408. We've had one at 1464. Do you see, in your professional opinion, that 1464, is that room a threat to be in?
It was a hallway at the time. It was just additional occupants, so you're going to have additional CO2 within that environment. No, 1,400. We've seen these before, and that's just a general recommendation to increase fresh air intake. You're probably seeing a little bit of drift on the equipment, even though it's calibrated. It might have drifted because nationwide, our normal CO2 outside is 420. We were getting 700. So it might have drifted. It might have been a direct read issue. CO2 would be the least of my concerns regarding all the other information that we have.
And also the CO2 could be elevated in the hallways as the students were coming out all at the same time. You're going to get more of a CO2 reading than when they're in the classroom.
So did you not allow for all that in your report?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
No, we should have elaborated more on the potential drift, to be clear. We were under the gun to get this out as soon as possible with a lot of parents calling and a lot of back and forth, and it was,
Right,
yeah.
I understand.
If we had to revise, I probably would have elaborated on a potential drift, considering the outdoor CO2 readings. Our baseline were higher than anticipated, or normal for the outdoor environment.
So back to that discussion, and can you, both of you just state what your credentials are, just for the public that's listening?
Sure. I'm a certified industrial hygienist and a certified safety professional. Been in the industry over 22 years.
Thank you.
And I'm an industrial hygienist, been in the industry for 22 years.
So back to the CO2 thing real quick, and then we'll move on. At 1464, is that a level that would cause headaches?
No, it'd be at levels causing slight drowsiness.
It must be high in here then. So moving on to the fun topic, is there a threshold for mold spores? Is there a upper limit, not to exceed limit?
There is not. There is not. In industrial hygiene, there's a threshold for everything, but mold is the Wild West. So if I could just give a little background how we look at that, we're looking for outdoor, obviously, we have some fresh air coming in, but we're also looking for genera, species that are inside the environment that are related to potential high levels of moisture, albeit dew points being hit, or just an environment that you have elevated moisture levels. So we're looking at cladosporium that's associated with, mainly associated with in the indoor environment, problem with your ductwork. You have your Penicillium aspergillus, that could be a ductwork as well as active water intrusions. You have your Stachybotrys, which everybody knows is black mold. That is rarely prevalent, which we did get a couple hits. It's a very large spore, so it settles to the ground very rapidly. So if we get a few of those spores in an air sample, it's not a good thing. There's probably more out there. So we're looking at the species of mold related to what you could have. You've got your Chaetomium, that's like Penicillium aspergillus. So that's how we're breaking it down. It's total mold spore count, but it's more, the best way to look at it is species to species, and because Penicillium aspergillus is not usually found in the indoor environment at higher levels. And we take a conservative approach. 500 Penicillium aspergillus inside is probably the cutoff that we look at.
But is that just your professional cutoff? So there's no standard?
There is not. It's been as high as 1,750. Usually 1,000 indoors is your total spore count cutoff. But that can be dictated by how much fresh air and what spores are coming in as well, because you could have quite a bit of basidiospores, which are an outdoor species that is migrated inside.
So on page 11 of your report, you talk about the indoor spore count is lower than the outdoor spore count.
Correct.
But then you reference that some of the readings are elevated. What makes them elevated if they're lower than the outdoor spore count?
If you're looking at the results, that's how we break it down by total spore count is less than outdoor. Then we get into the species, which you see the Penicillium aspergillus is elevated. That's the individual species, not the total spore count for the mold sample.
Okay, so it's particular to the spore. not the count, it's the whichever
That's right.
flavor it
That's
is.
right. That's right.
So on page 13 are your recommendations and observations and conclusions and observations, I think, are recommendations. You, on number 5, bullet number 5, on dot number 5, whatever you want to call it, you talk about shutting part of the building down, putting it under negative pressure to make those repairs. Are you talking about that side of the building? Are you talking about the whole 700 building? Or are you just talking about the affected area where the rotting wood is on the outside coming in?
We're talking about the affected area from room 701 down to room 709 on that back wall.
So you're not, and your recommendations, as I read it and what you just stated, you're not recommending for us to shut that building down right now and go in and deep clean and put it under negative pressure right now, other than that one area?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
That area should be sealed off under negative containment from the remainder of the building while you do the remediation in those rooms.
Because it's an active water leak from the condensate lines of the barred units outside.
Yes, and I'll go ahead and admit on camera, on whatever you want to admit on those pictures, and that situation is disturbing, that our preventative maintenance and our general maintenance has allowed that to get to that condition. I'm not going to deny that. That is terrible. And hopefully we can learn from that and move forward, and that's what we have to do. I mean, we have no choice. Well, let's see. I'm jumping all over the place because I wrote my notes crazy. So,
Is that right?
correct me if I'm wrong. You picked the locations of where you were going to do the spore samples and the traps by your instruments that you used to find the I guess the wet spots or the high moisture spots. Is that the way? Did I read it correctly?
Yes. Yes.
So it wasn't just you randomly picked room 22 for, I mean, I don't even know if that's a room really, but you didn't just randomly pick that area in room 22. There was a reason why you picked those locations.
We did not randomly pick any locations. They were either based on what we saw involved with the air handlers and what rooms they were serving, or elevated moisture conditions within the building.
Right, and in other schools, or if there's wings that are serviced by an air handler, we would take representative samples and select a classroom if there's no outstanding deficiencies that we could see, just to represent that HVAC zone.
And I think so the 17% wood moisture equivalent, do you have some that's way up in the 90s, some in the 60s? That's the actual, you actually stick the meter into it? Do you actually stick the meter device, the needle or whatever, into that piece of wood to measure it?
The pictures you're looking at are exactly what you just described. It's a pin moisture meter, and the pins were stuck into the wood, and I got 99.9% wood moisture. Well, actually, that's wood,
yeah.
so it's moisture content.
Yes, for the exceptional child in the exterior building in that picture.
Right. All right.
Saturated.
And it looks like it in the picture. So several of the huts that were tested came up extremely bad, and we talked about this, a couple of us earlier, that those huts, have been abandoned pretty much since 2017, and we neglected them by, it's like an old house. You turn the air conditioner off, you walk away from it, and nobody goes home for 2 years, and you go back and the house is falling apart. It just needs love, and we failed to do that. With the majority of the huts, out of 14 huts, we are currently only using 5, and one of those huts is only one of those 5 huts actually have elevated, what you considered elevated mold spores. Is that correct? Or do y'all even know which huts we used?
Yeah, which huts are you currently using?
We're using 18, 19, 20, and 21. That's 4. 22?
2, yeah.
19 was elevated in score count, aspergillus and, penasp and cladosporine.
But out of the 5 huts we're using, that was the highest spore count, or for the huts.
Yes. Well, it had an elevated spore count out of the huts you just described.
Right, yeah, I know there's some that's got more than that, but looking at the pictures, there's ceilings falling in and. So board members,
Yeah, well-
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. You also have to consider the fact that there's water damage or materials or water damage in those areas that might have dried out. So I would use a combination of visual, seeing what we saw, whether it be water damage or mold, and mix that with the result, the aerosol. So if a hut came back below what we're considering to be elevated, but you're seeing water damage, or I pointed that out in the report, that's also a hut that needs to be avoided.
Gotcha, that makes sense. So I do have 2 more questions. One of them, when did you present the report to Mr. Taylor? Is it the date and time on the email
Friday.
stamp?
Friday evening at
5:05.
5:05. I can tell you right now.
I think I have it. I just want to make sure it's clarified because the word on the street is we've had this for a week.
That's not
Oh,
true.
no.
If you had it for a week, trust me, they wouldn't have been calling me every day.
It wasn't a good start to my weekend. It was late Friday.
And shortly after Mr. Taylor got it, the board as a whole got it. So I want to make sure that was
Yeah,
clear.
I'm not sure when the board as a whole got it.
We got it shortly after you emailed it, Mr. Taylor. We've got it time stamped on our email. Luckily, that's one of the things that email actually does.
I sent it on Friday, 10/7.
4:48.
509.
509
We got
is what I got.
509 is when I sent it.
Yep.
That's what I got. And I done forgot my last question. It's not on here. It popped in my head, which is scary. So board members, you've heard, is there any other questions you have for him, Don?
Not for him, but I have some for our own people, so. So they've said, move everybody out of the room and put it under negative pressure.
When we do the repairs?
Yeah. So in the meantime, what do we do? Just keep going in an infected room?
We actually had some third-party vendors meeting us out there tomorrow regarding placing each classroom under negative pressure with the ability to remediate that as quickly as possible. We have the air scrubbers in the building as we speak, running. Again, they're simply a air purifier on steroids. It has the highest level HEPA filters, and we're constantly running them. There was some speculation about it spitting out some chemicals. That's not true. I have the data profile for that piece of equipment. There are 7 in the building currently running at this time. But our intent is to meet with these third-party vendors and develop a plan for remediating those rooms one at a time. With the help of Mr. Lawrence, we'll place those students in another area during the time that those rooms are being
Because,
remediated.
otherwise, aside from doing it one at a time, we'd have to shut the school down, and I don't think anybody wants that, so. We either have to shut down or go online, one of the two, and I don't think that's the option for anybody,
Well, the
so.
affected area is 2 classrooms, correct, Mr. Lawrence?
I
Mr.
think
Taylor, somebody?
there's 4 total on that wall, Mr. Lawrence?
4.
Yeah.
It's more like 3 classrooms.
Oh, they split, because of the lab and the classroom are each considered, okay.
Yeah,
What
There's also a garage in there as well.
right. A band room and a STEM lab. So 2 electric classes.
If you walk out the 700, if you walk out that 700 door back there, the 3 bar units to the right of that door are the affected areas.
Right, it used to be.
So it covers 3 classrooms and it ends at the garage door.
Yeah, it used to be garage roll-up doors when I went to school there. It was a auto mechanic
Yeah.
shop and the wood shop.
Yes.
That's how old I am.
But that EC class that's back there is self-contained, and they are back in that classroom at all times, right? Do you have a place to put them?
We could put them in a trailer
Yeah,
Okay.
I think our staff is working on a plan, and that's the, hopefully the path forward. All right, I got two more questions, then I'm going to let you, Ken. So in your report, you mentioned that the building was built in 1978, that there may be needed some abatement done to some of the lead paint possibility and asbestos. The section that you're talking about doing the heavy remediation in wasn't built in 78. It was built, I went to school there, it was Topsail Junior High School when I went there in the 7th grade. I'm old, but I'm not quite that old. And it had just opened.
Yeah, you should
when I
have
went
all that documentation. Yeah, all that documentation should be in your HERA re-inspections.
Yeah, because that scared people
They're
to death
done
when they seen that. When they seen that in the report, it scared people to death that we were, had lead paint and asbestos in that building. And I know for a fact that building it was built in the early 80s, late 80s.
Yeah, but that comment encompasses any area that was built in 78.
Right,
So-
yeah, that's the main part of the, 600 building, I think you call it now, that was.
Yes, and there's also water damage in there. You have headers at the 600 hall, in that main hall across from the office that are water damaged as well. So the reason I put that comment, that recommendation is in there was to make you aware. I'm sure obviously you know when the building was built, but just to make you aware if you're going to touch any items that were installed pre-1978 that they should be tested.
Just a heads up.
I appreciate that. I was just clarifying for anyone listening that.
Understood.
That part that's mentioned in the recommendations to remediate, take down, and wasn't built, especially that wooden wall. It was built 5 years ago, maybe.
It doesn't.
Then my last question, and then I'm done, I promise. So we've installed air scrubbers there right now, and that's one of the recommendations, bullet number 3 on your report. Some of the public are upset that we did that before we did 1 and 2, which 1 is find the leaks and fix them and dry everything out. And then number 2 was to hire professionals that have experience in mold remediation and cleaning to come in and do the deep cleaning. Have we done anything improper by putting the air scrubbers in there now?
No, it's just to mitigate any, mitigate any spores in the air. The idea is to execute all the recommendations as soon as possible.
Okay. So there was no really do this first, do this second, do this third. It was do as you can, the best you can, and do it as fast as you can.
That's it.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm done. Mr. Smith had a question for you.
It was for one of our folks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Mr. Taylor,
Yes, sir.
when did you officially start the job that you have right now?
August 1st.
August 1st?
Yes, sir.
Before August 1st, was this an issue?
Based on what I've heard.
Based on looking at the stuff, this is not something that just happened August 1st, correct?
Oh, no, sir.
The reason why I ask that question is because I know I don't want you to have a target on your back.
No, sir.
I want to make it clarify that you're a gentleman of excellence and you're on this and you're doing what you can. But I also want to clarify for everyone listening that when you stand up here, that this is you've come into this role, and so I'm trying to let folks know that maybe don't know that this is something that you've come into, that you're dedicated daily to get this thing resolved. That it's not something that you knew about it for the last 20 years. You've not even been on this job for 6 months yet doing this, even though you've done this kind of work before. That's why I want to clarify for anyone watching that this is not you didn't birth this problem.
I appreciate that, but yes, you're exactly right. There's, it's an opportunity that's in front of us, and we need to address it as
Right.
quickly and as ethically as possible.
And I think the whole board, based on what I hear, has full confidence in you. So I just want to let you know that because I want you to think you're getting the attack on it.
No, that was not.
Yeah,
that wasn't.
But that's why, and I'm not saying anybody on the board was doing that. I'm just saying the general public
Absolutely.
needs to know that yeah.
Yeah, my intent. I'm sorry, Don.
No, go ahead.
My intent for having this put on the agenda tonight is because no one goes and reads the report. And if you read the report and understand the report, take the time and understand the report, it makes sense if you flow. Instead, they go to Facebook and they find someone that's pulled a section of this that looks bad, and this looks bad, and this looks bad, and they picture post it up there in the collage, and that's what the majority of the public sees. They don't see, and so hopefully by trying to explain it and bringing out these points that have been brought up, but people, if they're truly interested in it, go read the report. This is right. We put it the first thing as soon as it pretty much came off the press early yesterday morning, Monday morning.
Yes, sir.
It was online for anybody that wants to see it. It's still there, and it'll be there. Back to.
That was the one question. You got something else?
I just got one thing. From Mr. Taylor. To the best of your knowledge, and like Mr. Smith said, you just came into this job August 1st. We had this report done in February, February of last year. There was recommendations.
Yes, sir.
To the best of your knowledge, were those recommendations followed?
Yes, and I've actually submitted that to several people who have requested that. I sent the POs and the, what comes after the POs, Dawn?
Payment on the invoices?
Yeah, the invoices with payments to those persons regarding each recommendation that was made. And I think the group that originally did that in the January timeframe was ECS or ESC. I can't remember exactly right now. ECS, right? Yes, sir. So yes, all those recommendations were handled by third-party vendors and the paid invoices before that work was done. It's unfortunate they didn't see some of the issues that the group actually bring to our attention, especially those outside walls, because that's definitely something that's been there for a while, needed to be addressed, and that's going to be a target, number one priority for us as far as remediating those rooms, because they are the most at need.
Like I asked you about yesterday, hopefully we can use some kind of masonry product instead of T111 siding.
Definitely not plywood.
No.
And we're going to revert those condensate lines away from the building, not next to the building.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
When is our next air quality test scheduled for that 700 building?
We actually have spoken with the gentleman that's online now, and we're going to have them go back in there and do some assessments after we've run these air scrubbers. And then obviously, once we complete the remediation, we'll have the whole areas tested again.
Okay, how long are we going to run air scrubbers?
I have no intention of taking them out right now. They're simply purifying all the air in the classrooms and the hallways, and I don't see a need to remove them unless a third-party vendor such as the EI group person, Mr. Rockefeller, says that we should.
Okay, thank you.
I think first and foremost, we have to get the ducts clean, the HVACs clean. That's your primary source. We have it in the report to do a horizontal wipe down as well. You look at it as just excess dust. It's a dusty environment. You're going to want to wipe down, have your general housekeeping. Even though the areas we're not saying vacate at this moment, which is most of the school, you're going to want to get your HVACs rectified and do your horizontal clean. And then your background noise or debris will be cut down significantly. And we are recommending NADCA protocol for that HVAC, which is creating negative pressure in that ductwork. So when you're doing agitation, cleaning in the ductwork, everything, all that dust and gunk in there is getting sucked back out, and it's not a classroom. So I would definitely expedite that as soon as possible.
I would just say to the board and the members of the community, I don't have the finalized plan, but those obviously are exactly where we're going. We have two third-party vendors that we know specialize in duct cleaning. We're in contact with them and hope to be meeting with them very soon to assess, and obviously we need to see what kind of cost it is, so if we have to go through the RFP process or simple 3-bid process.
That was my next question, was when we could get started on this, but.
We're on it now, sir. And I will finalize the plan, share it with you and the community as well. Additionally, I have a meeting at 8 o'clock on Friday morning with HES to discuss the contract wording versus the cleaning of the registers and things of that nature, which they mentioned there. Obviously, all those returns as well as diffusers need to be cleaned properly, because that just exacerbates the problem visually as well as realistically.
And this money would have to come, this may be a question for you. This would not be Esser's money, correct?
That's correct, sir. This is part of our operational maintenance.
So local money, yeah.
Yes, sir.
That was the question, the second question I had was about money. So I was asked by someone that wanted to know why we haven't run to the county commissioners asking for money to take care of this. The reason why we've not gone and asked for money is because we don't know what the price tag is.
Yes, sir.
Once we find that out, are we using our money that we have that's in already that we have, or are we going to go and ask them to step up and, since we have no taxing authority or money-making authority, what do you do in that situation?
Well, I would like to say that in my initial perspective, this is not going to warrant the excessive funding that some people might think. It's not replacing these heavy pieces of machinery throughout our school district that do cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece. This is something that I feel like we can handle operationally. We may have to look at where some of our line items were, be approved, and then we'll work with Ms. Nowlin to do a budget amendment if necessary.
So if the county commissioners wanted to step up and do something, what we should be asking for is to get more funding for maintenance staff.
Yes, sir.
Because we've got a cut on maintenance staff, right? I understand.
Yes, sir. In 2008, we had 30 staff members in the maintenance field. Today, we have 22. Obviously, as a conversation earlier with Mr. Hall, that is also part of the problem. I think a lot of our PM, preventive maintenance, for those who don't know what I mean when I say PM, sorry about that. That's part of the problem. Our teams are running from again, I don't want to make excuses in front of you or the community. We need to develop a plan and attack that plan. But the reality is, with the fewer people that we have, we're putting out a lot of fires, and we're not allocating the human resources to take care of the preventive maintenance, which would hopefully prevent this from escalating to the level in which it has already.
That's all I have. So there's quite a few ceiling tiles in the report. That's
Yes,
something we can go ahead and hopefully HES, are they still, that's part of their
Yes, sir.
responsibilities,
That is
correct?
part of theirs. And we ordered another pallet of those today.
Just one pallet? Because there's a bunch of them on there.
Well, unfortunately, in that one 700 building, or B building, or whatever it's called holistically, there's about a decade of difference of tiles. So that's part of the problem in that building, as far as it looks like they're damp, but they're really not damp tiles. Some of them are, obviously, but a lot of those tiles have been changed out over time. There's about 4 different types in there. So yes, it'd be nice to get them all out and have the same. I think it would brighten the area up too.
Looking at the report, some of the stuff that's low hanging that we're gonna go ahead, like the condensation pans that are
Absolutely.
stopped up, and the drain that's leaking right onto the ceiling. Those things we're not waiting on a third party, correct?
Yes, sir. We're working on those now.
And hopefully if we get our units running efficiently, they'll quit sweating so bad and quit drooping on ceiling tiles.
Yes, sir. We're looking at an improved filtering process as well, based on the machine's ability to handle that.
Yeah, because looking at those pictures, those filters, they weren't doing their job or they weren't there.
That's right, yes, sir.
So if there's no other questions, board members, we'll let the gentleman online leave us. Thank you all for taking part of your Tuesday night. You have anything else for us?
We're happy to help.
No, I think we're good.
Well, thank y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you as well.
You too.
Sorry that took so long, folks. That was something I felt needed to be discussed. So, Mr. Gary, are you there?
I am.
It's your turn. I'm sure you enjoyed that, didn't you?
I wish it was the first time I heard something like that.
So, Mr. Hall has got this discussion. I think he's just got a couple of questions for you concerning the needs-based grant
Okay.
that you helped put together with Dr. Hill.
Yeah, that was, I know you've done a couple of things for us, but, so the need-based school grant, and this is my opinion only, it always seems that it goes to places that are not necessarily having some of the growth issues that we are. for example, one system that probably has declining enrollment is building a brand-new school right now for $50 million out of it. So there's this grant process that you go through, and we obviously didn't get it. Is there anything that we could do differently to make this happen? Or are we maybe being punished for our politics that may or may not always agree with people in Raleigh? I guess, could you explain maybe some of the reasons that somebody may or may not get a grant? And I don't know if.
Well, yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. First of all, there's quite a large number of people that submit for this grant.
Yeah.
And there's very limited amount of money. That's the first thing I would say.
And
right?
correct me if I'm wrong, this is the lottery money that was supposed to be such a godsend for education, right? Or no?
This comes out of the general fund.
So this is general fund money.
I don't know I believe it's
we got an answer here. So this has, hold on,
Okay.
Gary. So Brandon, I'll ask you, this has nothing to do with lottery money.
No, sir, this was a general appropriation from the General Assembly that they put in this year's budget to increase in response to.
Because I've had a few people ask me that apparently erroneously thought that it had to do with lottery money.
Yes, sir, and I can understand the confusion because there were previous funds provided from the lottery to support this need, but the increased amount, because they increased the amount in the budget exponentially.
Okay.
And so I can understand the public's confusion, but no, the budget got put on steroids by the General Assembly. I don't know a better way to put it than that.
Good. Okay, I'll ask you. So Gary, I guess, is there anything that we could do differently that would help increase our chances of benefiting from something like that in the future? So, and let me be clear, I'm not knocking your work. I know you and Dr. Hill worked together to do this application, so don't read me the wrong way. I'm not trying to, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I know that, but I'm just wondering, as a district, is there anything that we can do differently to increase our chances for another time in the future?
Well, first of all, let me tell you what my involvement was. My involvement was about the new K-8 school and the cost involved with that. And that's what I contributed. The majority of the report was pretty much done by staff. But I will say that I'd be happy to take a look at it and see if there's something that we could do that could increase our chances. Having said that, I think that your board attorney could speak to the fact that there's just a large number of school systems that submit for this and very limited funds.
All right.
Yeah, I think the number at one time was a little over $1 billion for $300 million. The request was over $1 billion for $300 million that was allocated in this last round. So yeah, there was a lot of.
Right, and the reason, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So there was a lot, I noticed a lot of the districts that got this last round are districts that aren't growing, they're actually shrinking, and they're consolidating schools. They're taking 3 schools and building one new one to consolidate, which in the long run, I guess, saves taxpayers money with keeping upkeep on 3 different schools. So, I can see their reasoning for wanting it too. It's saving them money, it's saving their district money, and saving state taxpayers money. But yes, if you don't mind, if we can get you a copy of that application and you can just breeze over it, maybe at your convenience, and tell us if there's something we missed.
That would be great.
And Gary, I'll tell you so that.
I will tell you this. Go ahead. I will tell you this, that we did hear from from Department of Public Instruction that it very rarely goes to the same school system. So that would increase your chances slightly, right? And the other reason it's coming around now is it was delayed last year due to COVID. So it's normally this time of year. So just those 2 points.
All right, and Gary, I did a public information request from DPI. And what I put in there was that I wanted a copy of all the applications they received, and so far, they have not responded. So it is my plan to probably file a lawsuit against them so we can actually see what the rest of the stuff looks like, and use that to compare for next time. So, but anyway, but I appreciate you coming on, and thank you for answering my questions. If Dr. Hill had been here, we probably would have left you alone today, but you're the one left, so I appreciate you coming.
Hey,
Thank you.
This is
Well,
Beth
thank you.
Burns.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve Pender County Schools.
Hey, Mr. Huberly, this is Beth Burns. I only had one more question for you. From my understanding, there's been 2 rounds of this so far, right?
I believe that's true, yes.
Okay. Are we looking for a 3rd round? Is that a possibility?
It comes with every budget cycle. It was just delayed due to COVID. This
The
last
first one, what you're considering, the
Is that a
first
true
one was delayed
statement?
year.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, you're
Thank
correct.
you, sir. I appreciate
The Pink
that.
Palace in Raleigh was closed off for the time.
So the
Just saying.
next one will come after they pass 23 budget.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, just
Correct.
appeared that there was 2 back-to-back. It was the delay. Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Gary.
Bye-bye.
All right, Mr. Hall, this one's yours also. Policy cancellation, policy discussion.
Yep, so,
School cancellation policy discussion.
yeah, so for weather events, the other day, when we canceled or went online or whatever we did for this piece of a hurricane that we received, in the past, the school board always knew about it. This time, I found out about it on the news. So I think the law says, and Brandon, please correct me if I'm wrong, that authority lays with the superintendent and only the superintendent. Is that right?
It's not necessarily that the law itself speaks to that, but the law, and the board policy puts that decision in the hands of the superintendent as a practical matter, because in the event of a weather event, they are the individual who's going to be tasked with closing schools and preventing weather. Now, as far as communication of that decision, that it would be prudent for any future superintendent to ensure that that communication goes to the board before it goes to, or at least at the same time that it goes to the general public, that you guys hear about it at the same time. Now,
Well, it's just that so we're the ones that answer to the parents, not anyone else that works here, honestly. I mean, and so we're the ones that get to hear about it, and I just think in the future it needs to be, and Dr. Bracy, I'm not picking on you because you're brand new today.
Thank you.
No, so I don't take it that way, but so since I've been here, we used to do kind of a poll about things, whether it be snow, hurricane, whatever. And, you know, if you were, for whatever reason, not able to be gotten up with, then, well, you just didn't get a say on it. But as long as you got, you know, a few of us and everybody was mostly in agreement, that's how we kind of did it. We seem to have gotten away from that a little bit, probably because we didn't always agree with everything, but whatever. I just kind of think we need to get back to that because, again, we are the ones that answer to the parents, period, and everybody else for that matter. So I mean, does anybody have any problem with anything I've said?
The only, I like knowing, not that I'm going to change I do like knowing ahead of time. But I can see the necessity. I mean, the policy doesn't call out just weather. I mean, there's a vast number of reasons why school could be closed. And those decisions sometimes have to be made on the spur of the moment. And not everybody can be gotten in contact. If you had to, you can't poll the board. You can't.
Yeah, you got to make a decision.
Yes, because for us to act officially, we have to come together as a board, which requires an emergency meeting being called or a 48-hour notice. And those things just can't happen. So I don't necessarily.
Oh, I don't want to change the policy.
I don't want to take the authority away from the superintendent. Do I think that communication this last time was a little off, yes. But, I mean, we did have notification that he was in talks with our superintendent, former superintendent was in talks with Brunswick County and New Hanover County, and they were waiting on to do, if anything was going to be done, they were going to do it together. And that's how it worked, which I like that, because in the past, Brunswick will close at one day and we'll close 2 days later, and then everybody's on Facebook, of course, upset that Pender County's dragging their feet. So I did like the concept of all three districts making that announcement together, and it fell short on the communication. I drove to work that Friday morning. I can understand why we wouldn't want a bus. When I went across the I-140 bridge in my truck, with the wind gust hit it, that's in my truck. Times that by 10 with the size of a bus, and you really got a rock and rolling situation. So I had no issue with the closing of it, to be honest with you, in my personal opinion. I don't think we should change the policy that we make the decision when it's closed and when it's not.
So, Board, I would make a small recommendation, just because it's in the policy. And I'll say this. The first sentence of the policy says superintendent shall develop procedures for the temporary closure of schools or all schools. So a school, so maybe the development of some procedures, that way it's formulaic. The board knows, the superintendent knows, the community knows how it's going to be done and the order in which it's done to the best of our abilities, because not everything's always going to fall into place, but at least there's a blueprint for the next superintendent to follow that's acceptable both to the board and the administration, and to ensure that there's no confusion about what the expectations are. Just a recommendation.
I concur. I think that we need to leave the job of being the superintendent to the superintendent. However, I think that we need to be possibly a little bit better in communicating our expectations of being aware of what decisions are being made.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to change the policy for that. I'm just saying, just see what you think first. That's the way it used to be in the past, and I mean, everybody can state their opinion and go. I mean, I know that, I'm not trying to be nitpicky here, it's just that school closures affect a lot of things, like people that have to go to work and stuff like that. So it used to be that it seemed like we were always at the last minute.
Yes, we got away from that.
And they would call you at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and yeah. So that did get better, much better. But,
in the past, there was a big concern of makeup days too. Luckily now we have some built-in days, and we have some flexibility with virtual. So that makes it a little easier too. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
Mr. Smith, you good?
I'm perfect.
You're perfect. Month of awareness. Where's my main?
Good evening, board members. So I'm going to speak for 2 seconds and turn it over to Leanne and Melanie. They did all the work on this. So this is the month of awareness. We do this every October, and you can see they have yellow. Yellow's not my color wheel, so I don't wear it, sorry. But I want to turn it over to them. We have a brief slideshow. I believe you've been given the pins that we're handing out to the staff and the landing as well. So turn it over to these guys.
I'm gonna pull this over here to control. I don't really want to stand right now. I'm having fun over here. Oh. So the month of awareness, this is the 3rd annual, and it's a joint community building project between Exceptional Children's Department and Student Services and Bob, who's not here because he does all our lovely social media things. One of the things that bonds communities together is shared activities and shared experiences. And this is something that we do as an entire district, regardless of grade span, anything, to where we're all building a common understanding and a common tolerance for each other at the same time. And it's just really neat to see the kinds of pictures and activities that our kids and our staff are involved with. And again, like, we match when we see each other, so it's just a nice experience for October. October is sometimes a really hard month. So week 1 is already passed. It was Mental Health Awareness Week. Every week there's a calendar with activities and links that the Exceptional Children's Department and Counseling Department put together so that people are engaging in the same kinds of activities. And since that week has already passed, we've got some of the great pictures that the school shared with us. We just made a giant folder and just asked them to drop pictures in throughout the week. Bob's used some of them for our social media posts, and then some of these I just thought were super cute, so I pulled them for today.
Week number 2, I'm a little bit partial to. It's Special Needs Awareness Week. So we're working on this week for Special Needs Awareness. A week is not long enough on the calendar. If you want to just show them that. A week's not long enough on the calendar for us to help families, students, staff members understand all of the areas of special need. But it is an opportunity for us to share information, share some understanding and empathy for fellow students, fellow family members who do have different areas of disability.
And look, we already had a picture submitted for this week, and it's only Tuesday. That's Rocky Point. So week 3 is Bullying Prevention Awareness Week. Bullying's a very big topic everywhere. I'm going to just quote Sergeant Kitlis back here. So what's the major difference between bullying when we were kids and bullying now? Does anybody know? If not, Sergeant Kitlis is going to answer.
Technology.
Right. It never stops. It can invade a child's life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no safe space from social media. And so that's one of the reasons that it's so critical that we learn how to address it, prevent it, recognize it, and help, remediate the effects of it.
Week number 4 is Red Ribbon Week, which is all about being a positive role model and never abusing drugs or alcohol. And again, this is something that we can talk about all year long, but this is a week for us to really focus on that. There are some activities linked into the calendar to, again, share information, which is power for us. And I'm new to Pender County, so I just want to say I love how we do this here. I really love this. It's hard to, when the weeks are spread out over the year, keep up with all the weeks of awareness or days of awareness, and I really like how we celebrate them all together as a district.
Any questions? Thanks for letting us share.
Thank y'all. That's just been interesting to watch. I think Ms. Burns was instrumental in getting that started when she came on board. We didn't have that before, so. Okay, your turn again. Long maintenance contract RFP.
Been up here quite a bit this evening. Hope next month's not like this, but nevertheless, before I get into the last 2 items, I'd just like to say I hope that everyone knows how important the safety of our students and our staff are to me. I applaud the parents of our community who have concerns and share them with us, and the advocacy that they bring to the table. I think public education needs parent involvement. Sometimes it's not the involvement we ask for, but there's nothing wrong with having it because it's going to make us better as a school system. So the next thing is the lawn maintenance RFP. October 31st, our current lawn maintenance contract ends, and I just wanted to make you aware that I would be sending that out in the coming weeks in preparation for the spring lawn maintenance agreement that will need to be approved by you guys. But I just wanted to let you know we were going to put that out. And finally, at this time we have the Synergistic Group bringing an annual update for us. And I'll turn it over to Butch and his team.
Good evening. Every year we give a update as far as the energy program is concerned. So it's been a year since we gave the last update. So my name is Butch Collier. I'm the Regional Vice President for the Southeast. And so I'm here to make this presentation here. So we'll go to that first slide. We'll talk about some of,
Control it with the enter button or the down button?
I'll just use the enter button.
Hit your down.
I will use the down button. We're 42 months into the program, so basically the contract goes all the way through December 31st of 2023. So we're 42 months in right now. So far, this is the success we've had. We've had over 106 million total reduced KBTUs, which is a standard measurement that we use for electricity and gas there. That's a 45.8% reduction in the EUI, which measures the energy use index. The EUI is based on a 12-month period. So that 12-month period is the last 12 months that we have data on, and it's being compared to the base year 12 months, which equals to a 25.3% savings. Here's the energy saving details. Just so that you know, again, contracted months is 60. So far, we have invoiced for 42 months there. You've got a total invoice amount of 1.4 million because we split 50% on the savings. Savings to date is 3.2. There have been significant rate increases by Duke. In 2019, there was a 5.1% increase. And then in 2021, there's a 4.7% increase. I'm sure that more are expected as we're seeing it throughout the country there.
So we have two, we're not all on Duke.
I know, but I'm just telling you that.
Fort County gone up?
Yes.
Yes, it has. I can't tell you the percentage though.
That would be important for our numbers here, if you know it, I mean.
Okay. The cost per unit, just so that you know, when you're looking at electricity, again, this is the last 12 months. Electricity overall per unit or per kWh is 22.5% increase in electricity, 48.4% increase in natural gas, and 38.2% in propane. If you are using at the same amount of energy, because energy is what we can control, we cannot control rate increases. If you were using the same amount of energy as you were in the base year, it would have cost the school district an additional $606,768. So that's just the last 12 months. So that's a pretty good accomplishment there. Again, we control the usage. This shows the energy usage trend. The red line there is your usage in KBTUs during the base year, which is the year before you signed the contract. All other years, PY1 is the blue line, and then of course we're in PY4 right now, which is the yellow line. Of course, you'll notice these are all raw numbers. As you can see there in PY2, which was the COVID year, you had April and May there where basically everything was closed down as far as school was concerned. So that kind of shows the trend. So we've definitely increased the usage, which I said is like what we looked at.
So back up one. So we had one of the hottest summers this year that we've had on record, and we reduced that much. What did we cut off to do that?
So we don't cut off anything. So what we do,
cut back then.
Yeah, we do have setbacks. So we do the setbacks.
It causes things to cut off. I mean, when you set the temperature higher,
it will.
It's going to cut off. So
It
cut
will.
off, cut back, whatever you want to call it. It's
Yeah.
play on words, but what did we cut back then to get to that? Because that's quite a drop, and one of the hottest summers we've had.
Correct. So, like I said, these are just raw numbers right here. So we were able to combine some things at summer schools and summer events where we could control the areas rather than having people throughout the building. We were able to consolidate them to certain areas, which allowed us to be able to do that rather than running a whole building.
I know we cut off Topsail Elementary School because Parks and Rec had their camp there and had to move because they couldn't get air conditioning to work. So I know we.
Surf City Middle too for a soccer, volleyball camp.
Yeah, that's a significant drop in for it to be as hot as it was to drop that far. I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
That's okay. Rich Smith, your energy specialist back there, he's basically in the last 12 months, he's conducted over 1,200 audits. We pretty much want our energy specialists to be in the buildings at least 25 audits a week, and so that average is about correct. Remember, our biggest energy saving opportunities is what we want him to try to find and identify. So we want them to go when students and staff are not in the building. So as you can see, almost 61% of those audits have been conducted during unoccupied time there. I believe that's it for the presentation part. I know that y'all had some questions, which is another reason I'm here, I think from the last board meeting. So what we wanted to try to do is we actually went through some of the questions that you had, and we wanted to try to provide answers for those. And then if you have any questions, I'll be.
Can I ask you one before we get to the old ones?
Yes, sir.
So with the rates, what bearing do the electric rates have on our contract? You know.
So basically
There's an easy way to answer that, I guess.
So I will tell you, with the rates the way they currently are right now, okay, and what we do is we take that rate and it looks at the usage that you had in the base year, because that's what we can control. And so the rates right now, if you were paying during the base, if you were using the same amount of energy as you were using before we got here, and you multiply that by the rates, overall, it would cost you almost $1.5 million since the beginning of the contract.
I was just confused when we talked about rates because I am an industrial user myself, and Fort County Electric, who many of our schools are on, has not had an increase that I know of, and I would know.
Yeah.
And Duke is regulated by the Utilities Commission, which means we will pay. How can I put this the best? We will pay later for the high natural gas prices of today.
Correct.
But I think your contract is more of, regardless of price, is the amount of energy you use, right?
Our job, we know we can control energy, so that's what we work on doing.
I mean, I'm not knocking you on that. I just want to make sure that we're straight on the rates.
Yeah.
Because you'd kind of indicated that they went up, and they may have at some point. It's usually a 6-month.
Correct.
Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And then, of course, things like propane is not regulated. Natural gas is regulated.
Correct.
And so propane, you have no control over any of it, but I mean, it's just natural gas and electricity are more stable, I should say.
Correct.
At least for a little while. The elephant in the room is, as you know, we're dealing with these mold problems right now, and I hear it as well too, and I realize that no system is perfect, but like you may have a field house that is occupied right now, and it's hot in here. Well, it's hard for you to keep up with every schedule that goes on in the school system. Is there a way to do this that relies more on, and I realize the returns are not as big, but is there a way to do this that would rely more on things like lighting or anything besides,
Is there one way to save energy?
heating and air? Because you cut your air conditioning down too much, then you got mold problems, and whatever we saved with you just went down the toilet because of mold remediation. That's where I'm trying to go with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming, just understand, I'm not blaming your company.
Yes, sir.
I'm just using it in a general.
Let me go through some of the things that I wanted to address, and then I'll.
All right.
If you have some more questions after that, that'd be great.
Well, then they'll probably get answered with this.
I appreciate it, thank you. So I know one of the things where the comment was made about actually, I think someone mentioned that they were concerned that they're not actually seeing any savings, or wondering if they were seeing any savings. That was a comment that was made. The thing is, you've added 252,000 square feet since the base year. So you've added some square footage there, which is almost 16% of your total square footage. So you've added some square footage there. You've had some increase in your rates. And so when you start adding that up, you may see on your bottom line, I don't even know who's the CFO, but if on your bottom line, it may be, sorry about that. It may be the same as it was in that base year, but think about it. You've got the additional square footage that you've added. You've got some rates that have been increased. So you're basically, even though you may not see the savings in your bottom line, you really are when you take into account all the variables there. One thing, a comment was made about maintaining a comfortable environment for teachers and staff, centered around staff arriving to school without air conditioning. So what we were able to do in the last 3 months, we actually went to your work order system. I will tell you that Mr. Taylor was very generous about letting us do that. We had never had access to that information before. But I wanted to give you a breakdown of the comfort complaints there. So basically you had 234 comfort issues that were submitted in the work order system during that 3-month time. Most of those, 180 of them, were actually at school had already started. So we got 180 complaints there. So most of the issues with comfort are not dealing with the start of school. It's after they get into the school building and they're having school, right?
So does that mean that maybe the air conditioner didn't come on early enough to cool the temperature down before it got loaded up with people?
So, no, that's not the case. So actually, all your schools are starting at 5 a.m., okay? All schools start at 5 a.m. There's a reason for that. One of the reasons is one of the big things that came about through COVID was making sure that you had good, safe, and healthy buildings. And so one thing that we did is we looked at the ASHRAE recommendations, the CDC recommendations, and they decided that you needed to have 3 air changes before people came in. So that was the reason for starting things at 5 a.m. We always want to make sure, it could vary, but we always want to make sure that all buildings in all areas are at the set point before people start arriving.
What is the set point? What is the comfort set point for now?
It could range, depending on the situation, it could be anywhere from 70 to 74.
So what did they go up to?
That's dictated by the HVAC supervisor.
Yeah.
We do not set points.
Yeah, we don't have the authority to make the set points. The only thing that we have the authority, the BAS authority, the control system authority, is to input the schedules. We don't have the authority to change any settings whatsoever.
So say the set point, the comfort set zone is 74 today, during the day. What does it go to tonight?
So it's going to set back, it could be a wide range. It could be 80, it could be 84. It just depends on how quick that unit can recover for the next morning.
Does it ramp down or is it a sudden?
It's a sudden, because you only have a choice to have an occupied temp and an unoccupied temp.
All the excess condensation on the coils is there. There's nothing to blow it after it immediately shuts off at whatever time till it ramps back up at 5 o'clock.
Not sure what you're saying, but I'm trying to follow you there.
The evaporator coils are going to be wet when it shuts down, correct? In the HVAC system. When the fan shuts off, they're wet, correct?
Possibly.
Why?
I know you're talking about outside. You're talking about the outside air.
No, I'm talking about the air handler, the ones we have problems growing mold right now. The air handlers inside the buildings. That's where you're, in the cooling season, that's what makes you cool.
Correct.
The fan blowing across those. Well, they condensate with humidity. It's caused by humidity in the building. It's caused by the temperature outside. So when those units shut off, they're still wet, correct? If they've ran all day and they suddenly shut off, they're still condensating. They're still dripping water. Am I not right? I mean, am I talking? I've got an HVAC guy back here. He's still here, Mr. Lynch. Am I crazy?
Yeah, if they were in cooling mode.
Correct. They're going to still be condensate. So when it automatically shuts off at the set point, from then till the time it ramps back up, 6 to 8 hours later, that condensate's got a chance to drip. Things has got a chance to grow. Am I wrong?
So when you're talking about growing, and I heard the other gentleman mention something about 60% relative humidity.
Yes.
So that is the potential. So if you have 60% relative humidity over a 24-hour period of time and you never break that 60%, then you would have the chance of that happening. So that's why 60%. So humidity is a big part of it.
I still believe.
I'll try to get back with you on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is 5 a.m. is 5 a.m. early enough if you have staff that's complaining, or I hate to use the word complaining, but just stating a fact that at 7 o'clock when they come in, it still was an uncomfortable environment. Is 5 a.m., should that time be moved back? Since it doesn't appear that 2-hour block is enough?
So what happens is on the EMS system, you can see the temperature of all those areas. Okay, every classroom, every cafeteria, gym, whatever it may be.
Right.
And so what happens is we monitor those to make sure that those areas are getting to the temperature that they should. Obviously, if they're not getting to the temperature that they should, then we might need to start the units earlier. Okay, that's how we decide what time to start units up. But I will tell you this, and I think they probably brought it up earlier, is that, you know, if you have mechanical issues and you have those issues, it doesn't matter if you start it up at that time. You're going to go throughout the day and you're still going to have issues. So that's how we decide what time to start units. And everything we decide, we run through your team. I mean, we've, you know, of course I know Mr. Taylor's brand new here, but that's how we make decisions. I mean, we're making it together. We're just not us doing everything and nobody agreeing. So we work with you and your maintenance team as well.
So they're good, our maintenance team is good with us, going from 74 degrees to 82 degrees.
They have been in the past, yes, sir.
We have a new team now and a new leadership, so have we discussed it with the new leadership?
We have. We haven't had any issues that have been brought to my attention that we need to make those changes. So we're doing what we normally have been doing.
I think we recently moved the startup time back earlier though, right?
I think we did in some of the places. I'm not sure if we did it in all the places. Rich, you might know, did we do it in all the places?
On a needed basis in there is
Yeah.
concern.
So areas of concern, we did that. So most of the comfort issues were not at the building startup. We mentioned that of all those 528, 52.8% of those were decided as mechanical errors. Another 28%, and HVAC is, your HVAC team's the one that went out here and investigated this. So 52% were mechanical, 28% were, they didn't find any issues, and then another 20% are still outstanding right now. So that's for the last 3 months. A comment was made about the district is not allowed to control the systems the way that they want to. I think it's like I said before, all of your people have access to the controls just like we do. In fact, we don't have, only thing we have access to adjust is schedules. But all your people do have access, so we're not the only ones that have the ability to make changes there.
Do you all also do lighting?
Hang on, I'm sorry.
We only have one person that can adjust the schedule, Mr. Taylor, is that correct, in-house? Is there just-
Pretty much, yes, sir, Mr. King.
Trying to think. Anything else?
I have a question. So Rich is our go-to guy that goes and visits the other school. To ensure that you have the areas, maybe Rich could answer this one for me. Would you come up, Rich? I'd hate for you to have to holler your answer. Your communication with, who do you go to then if you see issues in the local school, improvements, or let's just say, I don't know, lights being left on or whatever? What is your way or your methodology of correcting that?
Sure. So when I'm on site, I'll document anything that I find. Up until Mr. Taylor took over, Mr. LaFont's preference was for me to send a weekly report to him and to Mr. Keene, the HVAC supervisor, and a bi-weekly report to Mr. Rogers, the maintenance supervisor, of any of those issues. Typically, the format of that report that I send them, any new items will be documented in yellow. Any outstanding items that are more than 4 weeks out are documented in blue. So that kind of gives them a check on what new stuff is popping up, what old things are starting keeping aging. and we did it that way. Mr. Taylor hasn't expressed any interest to me in changing that process. So that's typically how I document it. Now, if there's something urgent, I'll contact one of the two of them right away. Last year when I was at Pender School over the weekend, there was a burst water line and it was flooding our media center. I called Mr. LaFawn right away, got his permission to turn off the water, shut off the water at site. So if it's something that is posing a safety hazard or a damage, safety either to students and staff or to the building, then I reach out immediately. Otherwise, the preference was for like a once weekly communication with all that report on it.
Because you're normally in there when their staff is not there.
Correct. Usually it's on the weekends, it's at nights, it's in the early mornings, that kind of thing.
Now, the principals, now you were talking about how do you let them know? Do you put like a post-it note on their door, or I mean?
Sure, if it's something like, let's say I find a toilet that's overflowing and I cut off the water, I'll leave a note on the door, hey, this toilet's out of order. I'll usually leave a post-it for the teacher, just informing them, hey, make sure you don't have students using this bathroom because this toilet's out of order. And then I send that communication to Mr. Rogers, and I'll usually send an email to the principal as well.
Okay.
While we're at it, one thing that is worth discussing is the scheduling. Because I know, Mr. George, you made the comment last month that you've been at volleyball games and the air cuts off. So the way that scheduling, the process that we have in place, that facilities put in place for scheduling, is that all after-school scheduling requests or anything that happens after school is supposed to be directed through Ms. Valerie Vane. And at the end of the week, she sends out a report with, this is what we have coming up for the week. And that goes both to me and to the custodial supervisor so they can provide services outside of contracted hours. I enter those schedules in as soon as I get them on Friday afternoon. And anything that is in there is then on the schedule. The high school athletics work a little bit differently because we have so many things where games will get rescheduled, they'll get canceled last minute, they're going to change venues and that kind of thing. So weekly, the high school athletic directors send me an email with the upcoming athletics for the week, and I put those in as well. Last minute thing, obviously we're not going to remember everything. The principals won't remember all their events. Last minute practices are going to happen and those kind of things. Both the athletic directors and all the principals have my phone number and my contact information. They can contact me at any time, and I'm able to change those schedules remotely, so I can get to them immediately when they let me know. So if there is an issue as far as hey, there's a game on the schedule and the air cut off, then that's something they should reach out to me that I need to be aware of, so I can figure out where did the miscommunication happen that we were supposed to have air on during this time.
And that's what I was getting at, just make sure there is a communication and how it's done, so.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's typically, that's how we do it.
Just want to know, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
In addition, Mr. Smith sends information to the custodial supervisor for the district,
Okay.
which has, I think, improved throughout the district regarding doors left open, doors unlocked, things of that nature, lights off, things of that nature. So you'd ask about the lights, and I knew that was a little piece of it there.
Yeah, just a little, with him not being there during that was all.
Yeah, one of the struggles we've had with the previous contract, one of the many struggles we've had with the previous custodial contractors is, the two responsibilities we have for the custodial contractors from an energy perspective is just making sure all the doors are closed at the end of the night, making sure all the lights are off. And that has been a constant struggle for the last 3 years or so. I will say with HES, working through their supervisor, I've seen a drastic reduction in those issues. Lights are getting turned off, doors are getting closed. So we're getting a big improvement in that. The main one for me, if a light gets left on, I don't want to pick a fight about it. I'm going to say something to them about it, but it's not huge, not the end of the world. The big one for me is the exterior doors. To me, that poses a huge safety issue for the students and the staff. If the door to the gym at Topsail High School gets left open at 5 p.m. on a Friday, that gives someone Friday night, Saturday, Sunday night, into Monday to go into that building and do whatever it is that they want.
Like destroy the school or something?
Yes, destroy the school,
Leave it up the same night, that kind of thing?
Right.
Yeah.
Anything like that. So we have seen a market increase, a reduction in the number of those exterior doors being left open and those kind of things. So I will say we're seeing some progress there.
That it's not down to zero yet.
It's not down to zero yet. I don't know that we'll ever get it to zero. That's certainly the goal. We'll keep pushing for it. But we are doing, you know, where I'd say it used to be maybe 10 a month, now we're down to 3.
Yeah, and that's still 3 too many.
Yeah, I agree. I agree
Okay.
with you 100%.
Thank you.
Any other questions I can answer for you?
Any other questions, board members?
I just add one more thing before they leave. Conversation with Mr. Smith earlier today. Part of their services we probably are using. We're paying for them, those services, and we need to incorporate them into our HVAC response and mold remediation and those things. So we will be utilizing their services to evaluate the equipment at Topsail Middle, and particularly first to ascertain whether or not we can use the improved filters that we believe we need to use on those air handler units.
Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now into consent agenda. Board members, you've had an opportunity to review the consent agenda. Is there any items that need discussion?
I got one quick question. So the mobile unit demolition request, where is that so that the public can hear?
Yes, sir. It's a relatively aged mobile unit that was used by the Cape Fear Community College for the outer body instructor class. That's located behind one of the warehouses at the Civil Services Building, office area.
So this is not, I just want the public to know, this is not a school space thing that we're.
No, sir. It's not a current school space, and obviously moving it, potentially destroyed, et cetera.
Thanks. I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Hawes made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous. Comments from board members. Ms. Burns?
Hey, first I wanted to say thank you to the EC Department and Student Services for continuing to shine a light on the month of awareness. There's a lot of issues there that entire month that we have, you know, I can remember a time when we never talked about mental health or about special needs or bullying or the Red Ribbon Week. And I wanted to thank you for continuing that. It's important because you can't change culture unless you bring these topics to the forefront and you talk about it and you give kids a chance to, you know, to learn about these things that they typically wouldn't be exposed to. And I heard someone say one time, and a quote that I always carry with me: inclusion is everyone's ability. And I take that to heart. So again, I say thank you, and that is it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Mr. Smith?
Yes, if you don't mind, talking about the EC, if I could get the EC director to come up for a moment, I'd just like to address you in front of everyone. It's a particular issue that's really been something I think the whole public needs to hear. The issue is that you came here tonight on your birthday. And I feel like that what a wonderful opportunity it is for us to show our appreciation for the great job that you have done, as I've done to other staff members if it's their birthday, is that I believe that we've got a few of the folks in the back that were wearing yellow. If you're wearing yellow tonight, you're going to help us lead the singing. I see some. So if it's all right, Mr. Chair, can we sing happy birthday to such a wonderful employee?
You can. I've got my mic off.
And we're not going to announce any ages or anything like that. So.
I'm older, clearly.
Let's go ahead and sing.
Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Melanie. Happy birthday
to you.
Thank you.
You can.
As an adult, you don't often get sung happy birthday to, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll tell you, it's your role is very important in our district. with someone who has an adult son who has Asperger's syndrome, I understand how important it is that we do show to our children every day the importance of each child. I concur with Ms. Burns. We have to do everything we can, and every child's important. Not every child's going to be the valedictorian, but our main objective, I think, and I heard Ms. Fontana say this before, every child that walks across that stage, regardless of what level they're at, is truly a blessing, not only to their parents, but us as board members. And so you can officially go home tonight and say you had 4 elected officials sing you happy birthday. So God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Hall?
I have none.
Mr. Hall has none. So I just got a couple of things. So next month when we come back, we'll know if the school bond passed or not. And I just want everybody to know how important it is for the school bond to pass. So I had Mr. Smith pull some numbers for me today, what it would look like if we have to do a realignment on the eastern side of the county, because that's what will most definitely have to happen. And just looking at those numbers, south of Highway 210 to Scotts Hill and west to Island Creek and west to Running Deer, there's an opportunity to move up to 1,200 students. There's 1,200 students living in that little area. Of course, not all of those students will move, but there's a good portion of those, especially the high school students in that area, would have to be redistricted somewhere. And most likely that redistrict would come to Heidi Trask. And also when they go to Heidi Trask, when Heidi Trask becomes overcrowded because they're at almost capacity, those students are going to have to go to Pender. So I want everybody to realize the effects that this is going to have, not on just a couple of schools in the county. This is going to have effect on every school in the county. All the way out to Malpas Corner, she'll be getting some students that she's not had before. And West Pender will get students they've not had before. It's going to be major, and it's going to be countywide. And if you look at our map, it's not a straight line across Pender County. You have to go around 48,000 acres of holly shelter game lands. So getting those students from Topsail area, Hampstead, Scotts Hill area to Rocky Point is going to add a considerable amount of time on the buses, which is going to add considerable more buses on the road that we can't find drivers for now. The students that have to go from Rocky Point to Pender, they're going to have to travel farther than they're traveling now. Nobody's going to be comfortable with those extended bus routes. So I want everyone to, realize that is a good likelihood that that's the option that we are faced with. We have to have a school. So the county commissioners will have to figure a way somehow to, get us a school. And $111 million straight out of the general fund is not an option without a drastic tax increase. And we're not talking 5 to 10 cents like the bond will. We're talking 1 cent for every $800,000. 1 cent on every $1,000 brings in $800,000. So do the math. $111 million, 800,000 is 1 penny. That's a lot of pennies. So it's not going to be 5 or 10 cents. It's going to be more in the 15, 20, 25 cent, and which is going to tax several people in this county out of their homes. And I hate to see that happen, but we have no choice. So we have to find seats. By law, the county has to provide seats. So we have to go to them. They're the taxing authority. There's talk of, there are people that are upset that the bond doesn't encompass a high school. And no, it doesn't. And when we first started with the bond talk, I don't know how many were here, it started in the Cal, but there was a high school on that bond, on the original paper. There was several things on that paper. There was quite a few renovations that need to happen in this county. Some of our facilities are just in dire shape, and they need renovation. And those got cut. because the bond was so extravagant. So if the bond gets voted down in November, the next time the bond can come up is in 2024 by general statute. You can only do it on even years. So at our current inflation rate, in case y'all hadn't been to the grocery store lately, it's climbing pretty fast. So if we just took a 12%, which is be common over 2 years, I guess they're making 6% a year. So we're looking taking that $175 million bond, and we're looking at almost $280 million bond, just for what we got on the bond this time. That's not counting the high school. A high school alone is another $200 million just by itself. So we're looking at over $500 million bond in 2024 if this one doesn't pass. That's major. That scares me. I don't like the $177 million bond, but it's a necessity. And I hope, and I know the staff members can't campaign for it at school, but those of you that are in schools that's got 30 plus kids packed in a classroom, or at the high school where it's standing room only, and literally we had English 4 classes that were standing room only at Topsail High School. On your off time, you need to be explaining to people that this, what you're going through and what's happening inside the school. We had our last formal public bond presentation at Surf City this past week, or last week, Thursday night. And there was a parent there, and she actually does sub work for us. She's a former administrator, she's a teacher. She's subbing at Topsail High School, and she stood up and talked about the conditions inside that school, what she sees every day, because she's a long-term sub in an EC class there. But her statement that she made should be carried all across the county and to the county commissioners. She is so upset. She just moved here in May. She's so upset with herself because she didn't do her homework. She feels like she was lied to by her real estate agent. And she said, yes, she looked it up, and the school system here is phenomenal. But she said if she would have looked closer to seeing the overcrowding that's happening in our schools, that she would have never brought her kids here. She said because her kids are going to miss out on all kinds of opportunities. And she gave examples of it at Topsail High School where they just had homecoming week. They had to limit the homecoming dance. It was first come, first serve if you got tickets. They only limited it from 2,000 kids they got there. They only had 700 tickets. So a good portion of the school didn't get to experience that high school. A lot of those were seniors. The bonfire they had for prep night before the football game, that was limited. A lot of those people didn't get to go. They got 120 some on the football team. That sounds great, but you only needed 33 to play football. She says her son, when he's in third grade at Surf City Elementary School, she said when he gets to high school at the current rate, and she had her stuff together. She had numbers that I hadn't even thought of, and she was right with her math. That by the time her son gets to high school, there'll be over 2,500 at the current projected rate. There'll be over 2,500 kids in that school. She said her son will never, see the football field, never see a baseball field. You need 20 kids on the baseball team, and you got a school of 2,200 kids. It affects more than just what we think it does. It affects kids coming up. So I know there's a lot of non-support. I hope there's a lot of support out there in the community for bond. For our district, we need it. The life of our district depends on this bond of spreading these kids out, so we can continue to be one of the top performing. Because there's no way possible. I don't care, and we've got great teachers, and my daughter-in-law's a teacher, and I think she's great. But do I think that she can teach 40 kids 7th grade math when you've got every different learning ability that you've got to teach to? It's eventually going to show, and then the desirable district that we live in is going to be back to where it was when I went to school here, where everybody was leaving. And that these school grants that Mr. Hall was asking about earlier, those are the districts that get the school grants, are the districts that are dying. They're closing schools, they're moving, people are moving out. And I don't want to see that happen here. But we have to do something. So that's my soapbox. I'm sorry I took y'all's time and my time to do that. And the last thing I have, we had an AD at Topsail High School back in 2018, maybe 19. He was there for a year. He was only there from August to August, but he made a lasting impact at Topsail High School. His name was Jeff Phipps, and he passed away yesterday. He had retired from here and moved to South Carolina area and was working as a athletic director in a school down around Charleston, and he passed away yesterday. So keep his family in your prayers. He was young, 54 years old. So, yeah, keep him in his prayers, and we'll miss him. We missed him here in the district when he left, and we'll miss him even more now. So moving on, comments from the board attorney.
All right. Thank you, board members. Two quick comments. First, I want to commend your central office staff, your new HR director, and outgoing superintendent attended the North Carolina Association of School Administrators training, that law, policy, and symposium. The reason I know that is because substantial members of my firm did presentations at that, and we enjoyed a great conversation and activity from Mr. Taylor and Dr. Hill. It was very educational for all parties involved, and so they are certainly getting up to speed on where the law is on a regular basis. So commending them for that. The second thing is the judge in the Leandro case, and you may say, why does Leandro matter to you? Well, it will matter to everyone, frankly speaking. We're trying to figure out what it actually means for a case that is not ended, but the judge who was formerly overseeing Judge Lee passed away at 72. So there are going to be some decisions made about how that case gets aside now that Judge Lee has died. So stay tuned. Prayers for Judge Lee's family, but that is a sort of major development in our world of lawyers, because it's the Leandro decision's on appeal, and we'll see how that ultimately shakes out. Because there's a need for funding that was sort of determined at the trial level. It's just how that funding is going to be allocated, if at all, and sort of has this setup as a draw between the judiciary and the General Assembly about money. So that is not a new fight, but it is certainly a recurring fight. But without any further, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Report for the superintendent.
Thank you, board chair, board members, and community administrators. I want to echo, I got to learn how to work the mic first. I want to echo those that have praised this team. I've had the privilege of working with such a strong administrative team. It was evident with Mike up there, Kevin, Leanne, and Melanie. Again, it's quite an honor to be able to serve with such a high-quality staff, and I think most importantly is working through this transition and how resilient they have been, and hopefully, not hopefully, but we will as a team make a strong impact for the next person who will be sitting in this seat. So I want to thank you all for this opportunity to work with them. October is National Principals Month. Every year, principals are celebrated for the work they do. Folks, 1 month is not enough. I can't begin to tell you how much I care about what you do and how I've walked in those shoes. And to be real sincere with you, I can't imagine doing that now, because when I look at it, I actually had it easy. So I commend you for the hard work that you do every single day in working with your community and continuing to create those positive learning opportunities for our students. So hats off to you. October is not enough, but I just want to publicly thank you for what you do. Few updates. 2021-22 Pender County Schools Purple Star Award. Want to commend the district as well for, actually Kevin and We actually had a state recognition as well. Ms. April Perkins was recognized by the state board. Congratulations to you, Ms. Perkins. So great things are happening in Pender County, and as a result of visiting DPI, Kevin and April brought this back to us. So again, quite a accomplishment that Pender County Schools 21-22 Military Friendly District Purple Star Award. So congratulations to the district. A few updates real quick. Friday, a lot happening Friday. Pender High School homecoming, 4:30. Parade downtown Burgall, 7:30. Varsity football game. Saturday, big time event at Topsail High School with the Marching Band Classic. If you could be out, make sure you have a great opportunity there. Monday, Mr. Taylor and I, the two Michaels, have a great opportunity to present to the county commissioners about the mobile units, so we'll keep you updated on that schedule presentation. Monday the 24th and Tuesday the 25th are teacher work days for our traditional calendar schools. Thursday the 27th, really neat opportunity at Topsail High School to an establishment ceremony for the new unit for the Coast Guard JROTC at Topsail High School. That's on 10/27 at 9:30 a.m. And then last but not least, Tuesday, November 1st at 4:30 will be Committee of the Whole, and 6 p.m. will be the regular board meeting. And we're doing that on the 1st because the 8th, our original date, is Election Day. So those are my updates. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I failed to welcome Dr. Bracy. I'm sorry. We thank Dr. Bracy for stepping in, and he's going to be with us for a little while. So we appreciate you already.
Thank you.
There's no other comments, board members. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
The Pender County Board of Education.
Everyone else has left the call.
Bye.
Okay, well. The Pender County Board of Education will enter closed session subject to the advice from the attorney pursuant to NC General Statute 143-318.11A1 and A6 to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel information under GS 115C-319 and to consider matters relating to the initial employment of an individual employee. The board will also go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3 to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to consider confidential student matters as provided in NC General Statute 143.318.11A1, and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 U.S.C. 1232G and NC General Statute 115C-402 to establish or instruct staff or agents concerning the terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property as provided in NC General Statute 143-318.11A5 and to consider and give instructions to the board's attorney concerning Burns Fisher versus Pender County Board of Education et al.
Board members, Ms. Burns has made the motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're in closed session. Thank you all. Have a good night. Safe trip home. Board members, we have a motion to come out of closed session.
I make a motion, we come out of closed session.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I guess we needed a second. but
I'll
we'll-
second.
We'll pass it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Board members, we have a motion to approve the HR report and addendum that's presented.
I make a motion that we approve the HR report as presented.
Ms. Burns has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second motion.
Mr. Smith is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Board members, we have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?